Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday Night Live. So today I'm going to be answering a question that I am asked probably on a daily basis. Do you believe in God? Where does God fit into everything that you talk about, meaning me? Everything that I talk about, the reincarnation, all of this stuff, aliens, angels, all of it, where does God fit into that? And also, what is my own personal history with religion? Because I often get asked that question a lot too. And I have people kind of that believe fill in the blanks about different things. So let's start there. Okay. What is my personal history and relationship with religion and God and all of that? So, everybody, hi. Thanks for being here. Welcome. Don't worry, you haven't missed anything. We've all just joined. So YouTube hasn't started. Do you guys see me over here on YouTube? That is so strange. Yeah, this is going to be live on YouTube. Can you guys let me know in the chat if you see it? Because people on Instagram, on TikTok are telling me it's not working. Okay, good. Hello, everybody. Yes, we're coming in. Thank you so much. Okay, I'll edit that out later. So, thank you. So, what is my own personal history with religion? So, I was actually raised Catholic. I made all my sacraments. Well, not all of them. I think up to confirmation. So, oh, hi, Emma. Thank you for your beautiful super chats. Great to see you here. So what is my relationship with religion and all of that? So when I was younger, I went to church, but that was, my mom's decision. Obviously, as a child, I wouldn't have made that decision myself. Most kids would not choose to go to school on Sunday or to have to wake up early and go to church on Sunday. So not too shocking there. Now, when I actually was in those things, so I went to Sunday school, CCD, for a long time. I went up until high school, really, because I got left back in my CCD class, actually. In sixth grade, I got left back in Sunday school. So I was a year younger in Sunday school than I was in regular school. And this was because I was actually dating my Sunday school teacher's son. This is what I believe. It was a conspiracy, and it started then. So then they wanted me to take sixth grade again in Sunday school. And I told my mom, absolutely not. I will never go back to that church again. If they failed me, I'm never going back. And I was like, I'm putting my foot down. I'm in the sixth grade. And we switched churches. I went to another church for a year. We didn't really vibe too well there. It was kind of like, all of my sisters, my whole family had gone to this one church. So then we went to another church because they left me back, because my mom has my back always. And so then I went to sixth grade again. Oh no, I went to seventh grade in this other school, this other Catholic school for Sunday school. Then I went back to the original one for eighth grade so that I can make my confirmation, because my mom didn't want me to make my confirmation at a different church. And they refused to accept it, and they still left me back. And I still had to then go to Sunday school until I was in high school. So that was my history with that. My mom was actually a Sunday school teacher, but she was not very good at it, Sorry, Mom. I know she's not going to watch this, but if she does, she might be seeing on TikTok, if anywhere. She was not the greatest Sunday school teacher, but she basically had to teach Sunday school because she couldn't afford for all of us to take Sunday school. So basically, by volunteering as a teacher every week, she got a discount on us going to Sunday school. So a lot of times when I've talked about this in the past, people are like, you had to pay for Sunday school? And I'm like, yeah, maybe ask your parents. Maybe everything's a free-for-all at other churches. I highly doubt it. I don't think the churches are paying for uh, everything for free, and also there's school there during the weekdays. So, then they have also everyone obviously paying like a tuition to go to Catholic school. Anyway, so that is kind of my technical history of my upbringing. However, it did not really resonate with me. I didn't feel, and okay, I do want to put a little disclaimer here, which is what I should have started with, but then I thought I had a technical difficulty and got distracted. I'm not saying that this is 100% the truth about God. This is not a video which is about truth seeking. This is not a video which is about explaining the way that things work like I usually do. This is answering a question. So this is all coming from my personal experience, my personal beliefs, and my personal opinion. Also, that said, if you're someone who disagrees with my beliefs, I hope that you are in a place in your life that you're able to accept people who have different beliefs than you. And as far as me, I have a bunch of friends who are very devoted to God. I do have Christian friends. Some of my closest friends that I love the most and care about the most are Christian. So anything that I say here is in no way towards Christian people, towards God, towards anything. These are all my personal journey with this. And as many people know, a journey with God, just as a spiritual journey, can have a lot of twists and turns and up and downs and difficulty. And it doesn't come as easy to everybody as it might to others. Some people might instantly have a connection with God, feel God's love, feel God's presence. And then other people might not. And then in the same breath, some people might be able to access certain levels of their intuition or certain types of abilities that they have, and other people might not. And that doesn't mean that these people are better or worse, or some people going to hell, some people going to heaven, So let's get into some of my, a little bit more of my past with this. So when I was younger, I did not resonate with the concept of God. I resonated with we should be good because there is consequences. I did feel when I was younger that there was consequences. I was afraid of hell, of course, because how could you not be if you're raised in a church, right? I spent a lot of time in the church because, like I said, my mom was a Sunday school teacher, but I wasn't really in church. I would be in the basement. I would be in the utility closet. I would sneak into the classrooms and check what's in everyone's desk. I used to go and go through the teacher's drawer, not their, the drawers on their desk, not those other drawers, So I was always doing stuff. I was in the rectory. Why do all these things sound sexual? There was nothing sexual, but I was in the rectory. I would play with different things, find different stuff. Occasionally the nuns would find me around and be like, oh, can you do this bulletin board? Can you staple these things onto the bulletin board or cut out snowflakes or something? So I spent a lot of time in the church, but not really. I was mostly in the alleyway or in the basement or, going through the stuff that the kids who were there on the other 5 days of the week, all of their pencil cases and shit. I wouldn't steal anything, but I would just check it out. So even though I spent a lot of time in that environment, it was kind of just another location for me to be at. And let's see. So also, my church was very unique. The church that I went to was very unique in the sense that, and I didn't think this was unique until I was an adult and I was exposed to more, basically to TikTok. After I was exposed to TikTok, because I grew up in Jersey City, which is right outside of Manhattan in New York. So I grew up in Jersey City. I moved to Manhattan when I was 18. And then I moved to LA when I was 23. So basically, in that time, I've always lived in super congested, super diverse areas. So I thought I was Christian or something, but I didn't realize the Christians that were not Catholic. I didn't know really much about that at all. Like there was some like Protestant churches around, some Presbyterian churches around, but not like there was no fundamentalist type of Christian stuff. There was not really any Baptist stuff. So the more hardcore devotees I was never exposed to until I made my apocalypse series on TikTok. I'm gonna be honest with you, I never even heard the word rapture until I was an adult. I never heard about the end of the world, about Jesus coming back. Oddly enough, the church that I went to, we always only really read the Old Testament and a little bit about Jesus, like when he was born and when he died, basically. But a lot of it was all the Old Testament stuff. So most of my knowledge of the Bible is more Old Testament. And I do resonate a lot with some of those stories, you know, some of those are bangers. Some of those are good. But also because I grew up in such a diverse area, my church did not ever say that if you didn't believe in these things, you were going to hell. And this was like some people in our church had half of their family was Jewish. Like one of the people that she worked with my mom, she was another person who worked in the Sunday school. Her husband was Jewish. So her kids went to both. Her kids went to CCD, but then they also went to Hebrew school. So, and there wasn't really like, by that point, the Jewish population had been changing. It was a lot bigger when I was smaller. And as I got older, the neighborhood changed a lot. The demographic of the neighborhood changed a lot. So there wasn't really as much of like a Jewish presence. So sometimes we would have Passover dinner in our church's hall. So like in where we would have our events and stuff, sometimes we would use that for a Passover Seder or for other things. So we would allow, you know, the Jewish people in the area to be able to use our church also for their ceremonies sometimes. Maybe not ceremonies, but like celebrations, you know? So, you know, I remember when I was in church, when I was first learning about this stuff and they were talking about it, and I was like, I remember raising my hand and being like, well, what about people who don't believe in God? Do they go to hell? Like, that's crazy. What if someone doesn't know? What if they weren't taught? And what I had been taught in my church was, no, of course not. If somebody doesn't know better, they have not sinned. And also that, because then I was like, well, wait, what about Jewish people? What about Hindu people? Because I have had a huge Hindu population in my area, like one of the largest in America, really. We have a whole area called Indian Square. So there was so many Hindu people. And I was like, oh my God, well, what happens to all these people? Are all these people going to go to hell? What the heck? And they were like, no, absolutely not. And also we had some people in our church who they were Catholic, but the rest of their family was Muslim. Because as you know, Middle Eastern culture is of all three religions. You know, we have Middle Eastern people that are Muslim, Middle Eastern people that are Jewish, and also a very large population in that area in Jersey of Christian Middle Eastern people. So then there was also a lot of people who that was also the rest of the people living in their house. So I had no idea until I made my apocalypse series that all of these like kind of Bible Belt Christian people like straight up attack people on the internet in the name of God. I had no idea. Like, I've been told I'm going to hell more times than I did when I used to go to church. I'm like, oh my God. So that was kind of my background with that stuff. As far as say a connection to God or a connection to Jesus. Now this could be, like I said, might be triggering to some people. Some people might not ever want to watch my content again after saying this. I did not feel a connection when I was a child. The word God brought up so much confusion in me. It like that word was always so confusing to me when I was younger. It would rain and people were like, oh, that's God crying. I'm like, what? Why is God crying only on us, but not on other places in the world? What have we done? And then also I didn't understand the concept of how people could say that God was loving but then everything was about punishment. And I just didn't understand. It was like a disconnect for me where I was like, well, if God loves us, why is he so unforgiving? You know, I have to forgive my brother. I have to forgive this. Why can't God forgive anyone? So when I was a child, I had a big issue with that. And as far as like the Jesus thing, it just wasn't really something that I connected with a lot. When I was in church, the only thing that I felt very connected to was the Virgin Mary. I love the Virgin Mary. I still love the Virgin Mary. And that's just what I felt the most connected to. Now, could this have been some type of subliminal things where God is the Father? Me and my father have had a strained relationship since before I was even born. So worshiping a father, maybe that was part of it for me. I can acknowledge that that was it, that more of the mother position of God I felt more comfortable with. I felt safer with the feminine, the mother aspect of the whole thing, but that I didn't really connect to the male figures. Also, you know, since we're on the topic, you know, I only lived with women growing up. I had never had a man in my house. Well, I mean, my mom's boyfriend would come over sometimes, but like aside from that, you know, I never lived with a man in the house. Like we were the man in the house. So that could also be another reason why just as a child, I felt more connected to the Virgin Mary than say God or Jesus or anything else that was being brought up in church. Now, around the age of 12, I was saved. And I also didn't know what this meant. I didn't know when I got saved because it was against my will. I had no choice. And I'll tell you guys the story. But when I got saved, I didn't know until I did the Apocalypse series that they meant saved from like the end of times, saved from when the second coming. I thought they meant saved like, I don't know what I thought they meant by saved. I didn't understand it. I had no idea what they meant by getting saved. So I was at my dad's house, which was, you know, a couple hours from where I grew up. And a neighbor had seen that I had been painting my nails black and wearing some, you know, pyramid bracelets and looking like I was going down the goth path. And he wanted to save me. So for some reason, my dad, when I was visiting him for this summer, allows a random stranger to take me and my stepsister to some event. And so we go to this event and it's a play, a high school play, but like in the church. So it's like the cast is mostly high schoolers, but it's inside a Baptist church. Which was also different because, you know, Catholic churches are very, very extravagant and grand. And then when I went into like, say, like other types of churches that are not that grand, I was like, oh, nice little thing you got here. So we watched this play, you guys. I know some of you might have heard this story before because I've told it on my Instagram story, but like this play was about, and this was, okay, let me think of what year this was. This was the year 2000. This was pre 9/11, okay? Pre 9/11. So we were in a different world, but the concept of school shootings was still in the zeitgeist, you know? So this play is about a bunch of goth kids and then other kids in the school. All the kids in the school in the beginning are basically having to make their decision of, oh, are you going to go to church this weekend or are you going to be cool? Are you going to go to church or are you going to paint your nails black? Are you going to go to church and pray? Or are you going to go hang out with all those kids? So that's kind of the beginning of the play. Well, guess what? The goth kids in this play shoot up the whole school. Everybody dies. It's so... Did not see this coming. Did not know what we were going to. And then we're watching this. And then obviously all the kids who wore black nail polish went to hell. And the only people who went to heaven were the people who in the beginning decided they weren't going to hang out with anyone and they were just going to hang out with their parents and Jesus. And those were the only ones who went to heaven in the end. So everybody's in hell. They show like people burning in hell, like, you know, these like high schoolers are like, like on the floor. Obviously they're not using real fire. It's just so crazy dramatic. It's extreme. And me and my stepsister are like, what the hell is going on? What have we gone to? And then everybody starts, you know, a preacher comes out and he's like, if you want to be saved, come on down, get saved, get saved. Everybody runs down. It's like a stampede. Everybody runs to the stage and is throwing themselves on the floor. Other people run down, throwing themselves on the back of that person, everyone screaming, crying, the tears. Everyone's crying. Now, right before this, they made everyone stand up. So now, me and my stepsister are the only two people standing. We're the only last two people standing there, like, oh my God. I was not exposed to this. I told you, I spent a lot of time in the church. I'd never been exposed to this. And so I was scared. This was scary. People were acting like possessed or something. And then, so I'm standing there and I'm like, we gotta go. We have to leave. And then my stepsister's like, no, we have to go down. Everybody's gonna know. And I'm like, I don't care. She's like, no, let's go. Let's just go. And she pushes me down and we kneel down. And I'm like, I'm so scared right now. And they prayed over us and they saved us and all of that. And I was praying for it to end. I'm so sorry if this is your religion. I don't mean to be disrespectful to it. I'm just saying from an outside perspective, just as if you were in an outside perspective of a religion that you had no idea what they do. So afterwards we leave. I got nothing to say. I want to get home. I want to get away from this neighbor guy who he was totally fine. The neighbor guy was fine. There was nothing wrong with him, but I needed to get home. I was like, I couldn't even get to my real home. I had to get to my dad's house. I couldn't even get to my real home. So I was like, okay, I just need to get out of here. So we drive back. The drive back is so silent. And I'm like, he's like, so how do you feel? You feel good? And I'm like, yeah, I feel good. Mm-hmm. It was nice. I liked it. Yeah, I learned a lot. And then as we're coming to the end of the ride, I was like, can I ask you something? He's like, yeah. I'm like, do you believe in aliens? And he looks at me like this, like he was driving. I remember I was sitting in the front seat. He was like, why, yes, I do. And you know why? He's like, you know why, young lady? Because in the Bible, it says worlds with an S. There's more than one world out there, and God created all of them. And I was like, oh, all right. Well, thanks. And got out the car. Every time I saw the guy after that, I was like, hi, I'm busy. So yeah, that is my entire history. Now let's get into the questions that people always ask me. Do you believe in God? Now, this has been a question that was something that was very difficult for me because I always believed that there was something. I've never for a day of my life been an atheist. I've never for once a day in my life not believed that there is something bigger, greater, grander happening here. So even at the times where I didn't connect with, say, God or any religion, I always fought for this concept. I would argue with people and be like, listen, I don't know what this is, but I know it's something. I know that there's something that is driving us because I feel it. I can feel that there is something more. Now, this concept of God, this Christian concept of God, which is kind of the same concept as, Judaism or Islam. It's all the same concept of God, those three religions, right? So that concept of God was very difficult for me to resonate with. I did not feel supported by that concept. To me, that concept was punishing or else because I say so, and don't question me. If you have questions, there's no answers. Shove the answers up your ass. Shove those questions. That's how I felt when I was in just even the concept of God. That was my reaction to it. And, that's how I felt. I felt like it was a overbearing parent, and I'm be honest, I didn't even take that shit from my own dad. Like, I didn't live with my dad, so I had the luxury of not taking his shit. And I wasn't going to do that for someone that was allegedly here, but that would never come through to help us. When I asked for his help or assistance, I would get nothing, So I did not believe in this concept of God, but I never doubted for a moment that there was something more. And so I also, years ago, and I've talked about this maybe in some of my past videos, some of my first YouTube videos where I talked a little bit more about my personal experiences. I think I've talked about this where the first time I had gone to a Reiki healer afterwards, and this guy was very intense. This guy knew every single injury that I've ever had in my whole life. It was the crazy, out of this body, out of this world experience. I've done Reiki and stuff since then. This first time that I did it was very insane. And so after we got out of the session, he was giving me like notes on everything that came up for him during, and he was like, oh, you wake up in the morning and you don't feel like you slept. And I was like, oh, yeah. How does he know that? I don't know. I barely spoke to him before the session. We kind of just went right into it. And I was like, well, yeah. And for years, oh my God, from basically as long as I remember, from when I was a teenager up until like 25, 26, 27, I literally every single morning woke up feeling exhausted. And I never felt like I wanted to, like I got what I needed out of my sleep, even though I am a heavy sleeper and I sleep long. I'll sleep 8 hours. I'll sleep 15 hours. Don't try me. I will. I'm one of those people, if I'm not tired, I can wake up. I can put myself back to sleep like 18, 20 times. I could sleep. One time I slept for 30 hours. I did wake up to go to the bathroom, but like over a day. So, but then I wouldn't feel rested or energized. And this Reiki healer had told me that out of nowhere, I didn't tell him that this was an issue. It wasn't even something I thought about when I talked to him. After the session, he's like, the reason you wake up in the morning feeling like you haven't slept is because you're not connected to God. He says, basically, when you go to sleep, there's like an energetic cord between you and God, and that's how you can recharge yourself. And because you don't have a connection with God, or you have some type of severing of your connection with God, that's why you have shitty sleep. It's like, well, okay. After that, I had the best sleep for months after that session. And then since then, I have, in general, have had much better sleep. I do think that my sleep has gotten, and I've always had good sleep, but I wake up feeling exhausted. Like I thought I had that, like everybody thinks they have a rare condition, so I'm going to join the club, right? Everybody on TikTok has some rare condition that is like, everybody has one now. So my rare condition, I heard about this online. And I don't have it anymore, but this is what I think I used to have. They say there's some people who wake up feeling drunk, and that there's some type of body chemical that kind of makes them a little drunk in their sleep. Because I tell you, for like 20 years, I woke up feeling like I was drunk or something. Now it's not like that. Now I'm pretty much fine when I wake up. Now, so that put a thing on the situation for me. Now, I've also told you guys about another healer that was not allowed to work on me. We were booking the session, and then this was years ago too. This was, many years ago, that she told me she just needed to check with her guides and with everyone to make sure that she would be allowed to do the session on me, a similar type of energetic healing session. And she was told no. She was told that she was not allowed to work on me, and she couldn't get a reason why. She said in the past, when she's gotten that reason, it's because the person was like and somehow severed from God or something. And I'm like, well, what the heck? what is this? This is the second time I've been told this by an energy healer, actually, in different words, but basically they said kind of the same type of thing, which was interesting because then, I remembered when I was 12 years old, when I told God to get the heck out of here. I remembered that when I was 12 years old, I was having the worst. I've always had, like, as you guys know, I created the MOONBOOK because of my lifelong journey with my own period, with my own menstruation. It's been a saga. And I know so many women are experiencing the same thing: endometriosis, PCOS, hormonal imbalance. Those are just the titles that we have so far. Personally, I believe that they still have not figured out the full reason. And I believe part of the reason is the endocrine disruptors and the corporations, pharmaceutical, all the money doesn't want to admit what the problem is. So I had such bad problems with this when I was younger. And I remember one of my first periods, my cramps were so bad. I was on the floor and I was begging God to please help me because it was like my own body was attacking me. And I was there for so long. I was there for like an hour and it wasn't going away. And I remember looking up at the sky and being like, God, if you don't fucking help me right now, we're done. We're done forever. I was like, honestly, God, now that I think of it, you not once, never once came through for me in 12 motherfucking years. And I just was like, I got so riled up and I was like, fuck this, cut the tie. And like, I literally was so angry that I kind of made that declaration. Does that mean anything? Can anyone ever actually be cut off from God? No, I don't believe so. There is no such thing as being cut off from God. So now let's get into more modern time. I did my apocalypse series on TikTok, as you guys know, and then I got this crazy wave of like a different perspective that I had never gotten about which only enforced the negative beliefs that I had. The negative beliefs that I had around God don't come through, God only punishes, he's not forgiving, this and that, feeling all of those things. Then that avalanche of Christian hate that I got on TikTok, in the thousands and thousands and thousands of comments, people would say the nastiest horrible things. You click on their page and it's always Corinthians, right? What the heck is in Corinthians that possesses people to leave such evil comments online? I don't know. So that even more so perpetuated my feeling of this concept of God does not resonate with me. How do all of these people believe that they are doing God's work when literally what they are doing is trying to harm and hurt people's feelings? They're literally taking time out of their day to try to hurt other people's feelings. Luckily for me, I'm a Leo and I got a bully for a dad. You can't hurt my feelings, but you can reinforce negative opinions that I have already had that I've been trying to deconstruct. You could stop my process of deconstructing those and make me hold on to them a little tighter, even though I know I need to let go of them. Now, through my journey of the last 2 years into consciousness, and then especially the ayahuasca, like the ayahuasca is the biggest life-changing experience because that was the first time that I was able to see, oh, we really are all God's children. That was the first time that all of the barriers between us came down for me. And I was like, oh, wow, we really all are. And part of the reason why I'm also talking about this is because earlier today, there was some comments on the video that I had reposted from my TikTok. I had just reposted it here on YouTube. And it was me talking about how there's no such thing as evil. I'm not saying people don't do bad things. I'm saying that there is no force in the universe that is evil. There are no dark forces. The dark forces are inside you. The dark forces are not outside you ever. Just as God is inside of you. However, God is also outside of you, right? The dark forces will mirror and happen in the world and show themselves in the most disgusting ways. However, same thing in science. In science, there's a speed of light There's no speed of darkness. You can measure light. You cannot measure darkness. Dark matter, they cannot tell what it is. And this is what we've heard in spirituality. We've heard throughout all Eastern religions. We've heard even bits and pieces in the Bible that there is only light. If there is darkness, it's because the light has been obscured. So like this, my face is dark here. Now my face is dark. Does that mean that this was not the same face that was just there? No, it looks a little different with the dark, but that's just because the light is obscured. When the light obscures, it will look different, but it is only obscured light. And that is something that I am so surprised that the people who love God the most cannot get behind. And it's so weird because the Bible says thousands of times, like, love your enemies. You are his child, so you act as him by loving those who do good and loving those who do evil. It's all throughout the Bible. So I don't know where people are getting this idea from, because for me, just someone who is way less versed in the Bible, I can see so many instances of saying that every single person is God's child. Every single person, if they are doing wrong, it is because they have lost themselves. They've lost the God within themselves. So for me, my concept of God I finally am comfortable with the word. I was not comfortable with the word. And I'm sure a lot of people watching are not comfortable with the word also, because what I've noticed is a lot of people in the spiritual community have actual religious trauma. And I'm so grateful that I don't have religious trauma. I mean, that one getting saved thing was one wild couple of hours, but that was it. And it wasn't really coming from my support system. It wasn't coming from my parents. It wasn't coming from people who made decisions for me. It was coming from a random neighbor. So for me, that's different. But then I see too, all of these people with this religious trauma. And then it's, I understand why they're triggered around the word God. And my perception, okay, final question. What do I believe with God? I believe that God is everything. Every single thing is God, that the universe is God. It's another term for it. Source, the creator. These are just like other words for God. However, to me, it is everything, and that includes evil. And I know people don't like that. They think that God created everything, but then there's also evil, but that's not his job. And same thing too with like people who believe that there are some dark forces that do things. Someone brought up the comment of, oh yes, of course there's dark forces because there's fallen angels. In the word describes they are angels that have fallen, which is the exact same thing that I'm saying. Everyone is a part of God. Everyone is a part of the universe. Everyone has that same divine spark within them. Everyone comes and their soul all originates from the same source. We are all the children of the same universe. However, some people fall, lose their way, are so wounded, are so hurt, are in so much pain that they cannot do any better. They actually don't know how to do any better. And I'm very shocked that people can read scripture and think it means to hate people who do bad things. I don't know where this concept comes from. It must come from the preachers, because I don't know where the thing is. Like, that's the thing, is because I was not exposed to that type of fundamentalist community. I don't know where the information's coming from, because that's not in the Bible, right? The Bible doesn't say, treat everyone with love and kindness, except for whoever you think is unworthy of it, because then don't give it to them. Like, hello? Anyone out there? It doesn't make sense to me. So those things still don't resonate. It's still, someone said it, that yes, because it comes from the false prophets. It's true. They call everything a false prophet. However, a lot of the false prophets are the people that are standing in the churches that are spinning the word of God for their own benefit. that are teaching people that love is only for what? People who have the same religious beliefs as you? Crazy. And I don't know where people went along the way from everyone is a child of God to only certain people are worthy. That is wild to me. Now, let's talk a little bit about in Judaism. So in Judaism, which I'm not Jewish, however, I'm someone who's very immersed in Jewish culture all the time because not only have I always lived in areas where all the Jewish people are, it wasn't until recently that I also realized with a lot of the problems in the world that I've always lived in Jewish neighborhoods. So I always thought that there was more Jewish people in the world because I had always been exposed to a lot of Jewish people. I didn't realize that they're not anywhere else, that there's only like Israel, New York, and LA. And like the rest of the world, there's no Jews. I didn't know that until I was an adult. Because when I was a kid, I was always around Jewish people. So I didn't know that they were not everywhere. Now, also, I've had so many bosses that were Jewish, and I've had so many, I've worked at a lot of Jewish events too. So I know the Jewish traditions very well. And some of the things that I find really compelling, one of the most compelling things is they do believe in the concept of God kind of being everything. And I think this is just from Orange is the New Black, but I love the way that they did it, that they talked about it on Orange is the New Black. So I'm going to kind of use the same terminology or whatever, how she explained it on there. When, I don't know if you remember on that show, one of the girls converts to Judaism just so she can get better food in jail. And then she starts getting like pretty interested in the teachings. But she talks about how in Judaism, their concept of God is actually more so that God is everything. We're all God. So if we're bad, that means God's bad. And it's not because God is bad. It's because we're all God. So if we're choosing to be bad, if we are choosing to do wrong, then we are reflecting that back to our creator because we are the extensions of our creator. We're the ones living that out. And I was like, oh, that was brilliant. Also, Jewish people don't believe in hell. So that is another thing that I resonate with. And I also do resonate with like the kosher aspects of the food where like, say, for example, with the food, you're not allowed to have the milk of the mother with the meat of her baby, AKA a cheeseburger. So if you have meat and cheese together, this is disrespecting the animal because you have the milk of the mother in the same meal as the meat of her own child. So there's a lot of things within that I resonate with, just like there is in all religions. There's a lot of things within Christianity that I resonate with. It's a lot of times the behavior of a large few bad seeds on the internet that really can continue to reinforce negative thoughts that we have, because that's what happened to me. Thankfully, throughout all of this journey, I've actually become closer to God, so to speak, because I feel closer to the oneness. Like I said, when I experienced oneness, when you guys go, you said, give the Jewish population here in South Florida. Oh, okay. Yeah. So there's a lot in Florida too, but just to make sense too, because Florida is another hotspot for religions. Same thing like, say Scientology is only in LA, New York, and Florida. So it is interesting that Florida is another hotspot for, but it's also just because it's a very diverse area too. And it's very, diversity is more accepted. So, yeah, so I think when it comes to all of this stuff, I resonate with things that are in all different religions. But at the end of the day, I believe in, the oneness. And like what I said is when I was in Costa Rica at the ayahuasca ceremony and I had that experience, like I said, what was interesting is a lot of times I've heard other people having these oneness experiences and all they experience is love. When I had the oneness experience, all I experienced is neutrality. It wasn't love. It wasn't good or bad. It was just completely neutral, completely non-judgmental, completely only observing. oh, okay, like I said, it was like a petri dish. And it was like this observer, this God, this creator was just like, oh, bad bacteria is growing. Oh, good bacteria is growing. Oh, the good bacteria is outgrowing the bad bacteria. Oh, the bad bacteria is outgrowing the good bacteria. Okay, just keep watching the experiment as a scientist would. It was a scientist vibe. I'm gonna be honest with you. It was a scientist vibe. I'm not saying that there is no love or anything that people experience. I'm not saying, this was my experience. Let's see what else. What it says also in the Dolores Cannon books, in Between Death and Life. She says there are no punishing gods, that there's enough punishment on earth. There's enough punishment in humanity. There's enough punishment in the systems on this planet that God does not punish. Now, what happens to when people do bad things? This is the last question, is where does God come into all of the stuff that I talk about? And like I said, this whole entire Tuesday Night Live today was 100% my opinion. So obviously, like I said, made that clear in the beginning. So how does God fit into all of this that I talk about? I think it very much fits into what I talk about. It just, the point of God being punishing, unforgiving, sending people to hell, starving people out in the freaking desert so that they could love him more. I don't know. I've heard things that there's multiple gods in the Bible, that when you hear certain things of certain behaviors, these are different creator gods. And then the more loving behaviors, the more forgiving behaviors are the actual creator. I've heard people try to break that down. I don't know enough about the biblical text to be able to comment on that, but I do resonate with it, because there is some parts that I'm like, how could this be the same God? How could the all-loving, all-forgiving, true Father, true Mother, true everything of us all, we are birthed from it, we will rejoin back to it. How could it be such a dick? I don't know. Sounds like human behavior. Sounds like projecting human behavior onto other beings. Just saying, sounds like human behavior. And I think a lot of times that's what we are using when we're talking about this stuff. Most of the time, our only reference is human behavior. So obviously, now where does God fit into everything I talk about? I think, like I said, I believe that we all came from this original source. I believe that this original source had self-awareness. When it became self-aware, it wanted to learn more. It wanted to experience more. And then that's why it created these situations to obscure light, so that, oh, okay, now you could see it better on this camera, but like that the light is blocking my face. It's still the same face. And this is why we have this reincarnation process, because if we're all light and we're all actually only truly God and we're only created in God's image, how can we learn? How can we experience? If everybody is all knowing and all loving and all forgiving, and no one would ever hurt another, and no aspect of itself would ever do anything wrong or evil or bad, how can we truly learn and truly experience? How can it be a science experiment if you don't add some type of agitator to the experiment in order to be sure? And then this is where, again, going to get controversial. Like I've said before, people really don't like that I say this. I've believed in this for a very long time. I do believe that what appears to be dark forces are servants of God, or servants of the universe. So there's a concept that is called the Lucifer experiment. And they basically say, there's a lot of different things that talk about this. Sometimes they call it the Lucifer rebellion. In the Bible, it's called, the fall or whatever. But basically what it is say the light bearer, right? Lucifer, one of the most beloved angels, was God's favorite, wanted to serve God so bad. God wants to experience more. Okay, let's use it in the sense of like, this is consciousness, this is the universe. Consciousness is evolving. This one aspect of consciousness, which is in the form of what we would call an angel, knows that consciousness wants to evolve and wants to learn everything and wants to experience everything. And it's like, how can I help this consciousness to evolve? What can I do to make more experiences? What can I do so that this could actually truly experience everything that could ever exist? Well, Let's create a game. Let's create a simulation. Simulation doesn't necessarily mean that there's nothing. The same way before astronauts go into space, if you believe in that, I do. I'm going to trigger the rest of the people here by saying I believe in space. I don't believe that space is necessarily what they say it is, but it's out there. And there's space even here. There's space everywhere. There's space in between me and the camera. So the space exists. Crazy. Of course space exists. Space is here. Anyway, so would create, before an astronaut goes into space, they create a simulator. So this is where an astronaut can have every experience of what it is to be in space, anti-gravity, weightlessness, all of those things, while still being here on Earth. That's what a simulator is, right? That's what a simulation is. Simulation just doesn't mean means nothing. I think a lot of times people hear simulation, they get triggered by it, but it actually, like, if you look at what that is, that just means that there's a simulated version of something so that you can learn. The astronauts go into the simulator so that they can learn everything they need to know. So when they do go into space, they know how to make the right decisions. This is Earth School. We go into the simulator of this Earth School, which people say is the devil's playground. Emily said, this is the closest thing I'm getting to religion. So the simulator, which is Earth, gives us all the experiences. But then in the end, we come out of this experience. Even in times we get glimpses from within this experience. Either that's through near-death experience, profound spiritual experience, psychedelics. It could be through meditation. It could be through spontaneous something, all different ways that we can actually experience the feeling of what it feels like outside of the simulation. Like, whoa, actually we're all one. And this is all just a game. And like I said, when I was in that experience on the ayahuasca, it told me, don't rush to wake everybody up, because when everyone wakes up, the game is over. And you guys are all going to miss this game a lot when it's over. So that is why I personally believe that things like Lucifer, things like reptilians, I did ask about the reptilians on ayahuasca when they were telling me that, like, evil's not a real force in the universe. It is only obscured light. So light will obscure itself in order to have a different experience. So, and that's also too, like, if you guys go back to my soul series, I break that down in my soul series really well. And at the end, we talk about the book by Neil Donald Walsh, The Little Soul and the Sun. And it's so beautiful. It's like literally so beautiful. I'd read it to you right now, but you'd cry. But if you go to my soul series, at the end, we read the whole book, or if you go to my YouTube, you can find it. It says like bedtime story, soul series. But basically in that, this soul goes to God and is like, oh my God, I know what I am. And he's like, what are you? And he's like, I'm light. I'm the light. And God's like, you're right. You are the light. Now, what do you want to do as the light? And it's like, oh, I want to learn the part of light that is forgiveness. And God is like, okay, well, I have to explain this to you. In order for you to learn forgiveness, we're going to have to put you in a different situation so you can learn forgiveness. And they're like, oh, okay, sure. Well, I want to learn forgiveness, so I'm going to go into that situation. And then another soul has to volunteer to give you something to forgive. And in this thing, so we have the little soul, he decides he's going to go and he's going to learn forgiveness. And then another soul volunteers and says, I'm going to have to make myself so dense and change myself so much from this true, beautiful soul form that you know. I'm going to lower myself so much. I'm going to have all of these problems, all these issues. I'm going to be a jerk. I'm going to be this. I might be a narcissist. I might be an asshole. I might be call you bad names. But please remember my true nature when we're down there, because even I'm going to forget myself. We're going to go to Earth and I'm going to help you learn forgiveness. But please don't forget what I truly am when I give you a reason to have to forgive me. And he's like, how could I ever forget who you are? You're this amazing soul who has volunteered to teach me the most beautiful lesson that I could ever learn. And they have to both go into density, and she needs to play the role of the dark. So she needs to obscure her light in order to teach the other soul a valuable lesson. So to me, that is where God comes into all of this. And this is why I say that there is no evil force in the universe. Do people do evil? Do people use their free will for evil? Sure, of course. But those people, like it said to me on ayahuasca, I do still believe this. I'm open to changing my opinion. However, I see it more and more confirmed, is the only people who serve darkness are A, wounded, hurt, severely, severely, severely damaged. Because obviously we're thinking about the worst things ever. We're not thinking about someone who cuts you in the line at the grocery store. When people talk about evil, we're thinking about the absolute most disgusting, worst evil acts in the world. In order to do that, any of those evil acts that you can think of, you have to be so severely troubled. Like, there needs to be compassion for these people. Do we need to excuse their actions? Never, never. Hold people accountable for their actions every damn day. But if we really do want to move forward, and people who do really claim to walk with God and believe God and stand with God, then you should be the first in line to be showing compassion. If you really are, so everybody says how much they stand with God, but then they're the first to point the finger, obviously forgetting the three pointing back at them. And it's like, then be the first to say a prayer for that person, if you're really about that, you know? And it's interesting to me because a lot of people have, you know, especially since the ayahuasca, a lot of people who follow me have been like, oh, you've chosen the wrong path now. Now you're walking a different path. You're no longer with the path of God. And I'm like, it's so interesting that you can't understand the words that I'm saying are telling you to have love and compassion and forgiveness and understanding, and knowing that the same divine spark of God is behind every single person, no matter what they've done, no matter their actions, no matter how many lifetimes they've done it. Or maybe they were the good guy in a last life, and this time they're volunteering for a very brave job of teaching one of us a hard lesson. So it's just crazy to me that people can hear the message behind it and still think that whatever, I got possessed by some type of demonic entity in Costa Rica that apparently made me a nicer, better person. Just saying. Only made me nicer, better, have less road rage, be more forgiving, learn to be more compassionate, more understanding. That's devil's work. Make up your damn mind. Jen, you should read the Am I a Child of the Stars, the trilogy, and create a series about it. I think you will love it. Most of the things you talk about are in those books. Oh, cool. This story has healed something deep within me. Aw. So, guys, as we're come to the end of our hour here, thank you for joining me today. Like I said, this was a little different video, a little bit all over the place, but I did want to address it because I'm constantly asked this question, if I believe in God. And now I'm comfortable with the word God. Now that I truly understand, and I can wash away the people coming in saying, oh, God's going to punish you. You're going to hell. I'm going to heaven. Jesus is going to pick me up first class and you're going to stay behind. And all of those things, now I can wash them. Now I'm like, you know what? I'm not as affected by those things. I would be very triggered by all of that because I'm like, you're a fucking hypocrite. Can you? And like, hypocrisy will literally drive me over the edge. But then now after the ayahuasca, it was like, let everybody learn at their own pace because this is all a game. And if you run everybody across the finish line of the game's over. And then it's not fun anymore for anybody. So I have even more compassion for that situation when people are telling me they have it all right and everybody else is wrong. And as an effect, everyone's going to hell except for them. So, but like I said, some of the people I love the most are Christian. So it's not as the entirety to an entire group in any way. There's so many types of Christians. As we started with this, I was literally raised in a Catholic church and had no idea about half of this stuff, right? And there's probably a lot of stuff that people raised in other churches didn't get exposed to. Like in my church, we had Jewish people and Muslim people, because that was the church member's family, you know? So I grew up with that different perspective always. I've always seen these other religions as being equal because I never believed that one went to heaven and one went to hell, you know? Okay. Well, guys, I hope you, oh, I love that, Charlie. God is in our hearts. I believe that. I believe that. Your church taught about other religions too. That's powerful. This is Earth School and we're barely middle schoolers. Oh, hun. Oh, hun. Don't start with the middle school. We're never going to survive high school, that cave. Oh, and before I go, I've been meaning to show you I have a xylophone. Oh, my friend was throwing it out. I don't know how to play it. That's all I wanted to do. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. We will see you next Tuesday. And yes, I'm interested in the comments for this one. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here. Love y'all. Light needs darkness because the universe needs mirroring to become aware of itself. Yes, Chloe. That's religious extremism and has been a terrible manipulation on humanity, mostly to keep ignorance from gnosis. It's true, very true. And that's why exactly a lot of people are actually limiting their own belief sometimes because they're really holding on to the polarity instead of freeing themselves and being able to accept that there's other beliefs and other opinions. Anyway, guys, love you. Have a great night. See you next week.